Ever hear about those cases where the prosecutor, loses and they feel that sting of defeat, but then years later they get a second chance at justice?
Oh, yeah.
And not just a retrial,
Right.
but a completely different case
Yeah.
in a completely different state.
Wow.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
The story of Mary Jane Markwart's murder and how this unexpected phone call just cracked open a cold case in another part of the country.
It's a case that shows how things that seem totally separate can be connected in ways you'd never expect.
Right.
We start with the initial crime scene.
Okay.
Mary Jane Markwart found murdered in her Wisconsin garage,
Oh, wow.
both shot and stabbed.
Oh, my goodness.
Her son, Bill Markwart, quickly became the prime suspect.
And it sounded like they had him dead to rights. Blood matching Mary Jane in his car,
Yeah.
on his shoes, even a knife with both their DNA on it.
Right.
Seems like a pretty clear-cut case, right?
On the surface, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the defense team in that first trial, they pulled something unexpected.
Okay.
They presented these letters from a deceased inmate, Jason Fitz, who had some past conflicts with Bill.
Okay.
These letters suggested that Fitz might have had a motive to harm Bill. Maybe even enough to want him dead.
But with Fitz already dead, there's no chance for cross-examination.
Right.
How do you even counter that?
That's the tough part. You can't directly challenge someone who's passed away.
Right.
It adds this layer of uncertainty,
Yeah.
this what if, that can really influence a jury.
Uh-huh.
And it did. Bill Markwart was acquitted,
Wow.
much to the prosecutor's dismay.
So John Tyson, the prosecutor, is left grappling with this loss, trying to move on.
Yeah.
But then years later, he gets a call out of the blue from a really unexpected source,
Okay.
Jason Fitz's father.
Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Fitz's father wants to clear his son's name.
Okay.
He's adamant that Jason had nothing to do with Mary Jane's murder.
Okay.
But then he drops this mysterious bit of information.
What?
Bill Markwart is a killer.
Yeah.
He killed somebody down like Georgia or Florida or something.
So now Tyson is thrown back into all of this,
Yeah.
but with a whole new set of questions.
Right.
He's got this tip about Bill possibly being involved in another murder, but no specifics. Where do you even begin to untangle something like that?
Well, Tyson had something most prosecutors didn't have at the time.
Okay.
A digitized database of cold cases that he had carefully put together.
Wow.
And there was something else working in his favor, that knife from the initial crime scene.
Right.
You mentioned earlier there were 2 other unidentified DNA profiles,
Yes.
both female and related.
Exactly.
It seems like that becomes a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Tyson now had a possible connection between Bill and a double homicide,
Okay.
likely involving a mother and daughter,
Right.
somewhere in the massive southeastern United States.
Talk about a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
How do you even approach a search like that?
Well, it shows Tyson's dedication. He spent countless hours going over those online databases,
Wow.
determined to figure out whose DNA was on that knife.
Uh-huh.
Just as he was about to hit a dead end,
Yeah.
he found a poster for an unsolved double homicide in Sumter County, Florida.
Oh.
The victims were Margarita Ruiz and Esperanza Wells, a mother and daughter, murdered on March 15th, 2000,
Okay.
just 2 days after Mary Jane's murder.
That date alone has to be chilling.
Yeah.
But was there anything else connecting the two cases?
At first glance, not really.
Okay.
The poster mentioned a black male suspect and the victims being shot with a 9mm, or not stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the poster said they were shot on March 15th.
Yeah.
The same day they were searching Bill's cabin in Wisconsin for the murder weapon.
Right.
Seemed like a dead end.
But the DNA connection was too strong to ignore, right?
Yeah.
So what did Tyson do?
Driven by that feeling,
Yeah.
Tyson called Detective Brandon in Florida,
Okay.
the lead investigator on the Ruiz Wells case.
Okay.
And on that call, every one of Tyson's concerns was addressed.
Wait, so those initial discrepancies on the poster?
Were either outdated or incomplete.
Okay.
The suspect description was an old error.
Got it.
And while the victims were indeed shot, the autopsy also showed they had been stabbed repeatedly, just like Mary Jane.
Oh, wow. Now it's starting to feel like those two cases are really connected in some disturbing way.
That's what Tyson was starting to think.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the victims' relationship or the close timing of the dates.
Uh-huh.
The specific, unusual similarities in both murders suggested a possible connection.
Oh, okay.
What we call in criminal justice a modus operandi, or MO.
Got it.
The stabbing, the lack of an obvious motive,
Right.
it all pointed to a possible link.
Okay.
But they needed hard evidence to connect Bill Markwart to the Florida crime scene.
So with these parallels emerging,
Yeah.
what happened next in the investigation? Did they bring in the forensic teams to compare DNA samples?
That's exactly what they did.
Okay.
But before we get into that,
Yeah.
let's take a moment to understand who Margarita and Hope were.
Yeah.
The lives that were so tragically cut short.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the details and forget about the human cost of these crimes.
Exactly. Margarita and Hope were hardworking immigrants,
Okay.
part of a large, loving family.
Uh-huh.
They came to the U.S. for a better life,
Yeah.
working in the fields, taking care of their family.
Right.
Their murders were senseless, brutal acts of violence
Yeah.
that devastated their family.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And to think their murders went unsolved for so long.
But the most disturbing detail,
Uh-huh.
the one that shows how awful this crime was,
Yeah.
is that 2 young children,
Oh, no.
ages 4 and 2,
Oh, my God.
were in the house during the murders.
Oh.
They were hiding under a table, terrified,
Well,
and they saw the whole thing.
oh, my goodness. That's just horrible. Did what they saw provide any clues for the investigators?
He did.
Okay.
They described a dark figure leading the house and getting into a green car.
Okay.
A detail that would become really important later.
Yeah.
Remember Bill Markwart and his
Yeah.
green Ford Thunderbird?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So at this point, the investigators have these parallels between the two cases,
Yeah.
the time frame,
Mhm.
the mother-daughter connection,
Right.
and now this possible eyewitness account that links back to Bill.
Uh-huh.
Did the DNA testing confirm their suspicions?
Immediately.
Okay.
Investigators from Wisconsin and Florida started comparing DNA samples from the Florida crime scene
Right.
to the DNA on that knife from Wisconsin.
Right.
And the results were clear.
It was a match.
It was
Wow.
Bill Marquardt's DNA was at the scene of the Ruiz-Wells murders in Florida,
Right.
definitively linking him to a second horrible crime.
So they had him this time. No more doubt.
They were closer,
Yeah.
but they still had to build a case strong enough to get a conviction,
Right.
especially after that acquittal in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
But the evidence they found in Florida was much stronger than anything they had in Mary Jane's case.
What else did they find? I mean, besides the DNA match.
Well, on top of Bill's DNA at the crime scene,
Yeah.
they found Hope Wells' blood in his car.
Wow.
And remember that 9mm handgun found under the refrigerator in Bill's Wisconsin cabin?
Yes.
That was the murder weapon used in the Florida case.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So now they have his DNA at the scene, the victim's blood in his car, and the murder weapon linked to both crime scenes.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like an open and shut case. What happened next? Did they arrest Bill right away?
That's where the legal issues come in,
Okay.
because Bill was already in custody in Wisconsin.
Right.
They had to figure out the complicated rules about moving him to Florida to stand trial for the Ruiz-Wells murders.
Right.
And that was just the start of the challenges.
I bet. So what happened? Were they able to bring Bill Markwart to justice in Florida after he got away with it in Wisconsin?
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
Because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll
Yes.
uncover the dramatic events of the Florida trial,
Right.
the emotional weight of the verdict, and the lasting impact this case had on everyone involved.
Right. Getting Bill Markwart from Wisconsin to Florida to stand trial
Right.
wasn't a simple pick 'em up and go thing.
Yeah.
It involved navigating this web of legal stuff and interstate agreements.
Yeah.
There were even disagreements between the two states about who would pay for moving him and then the trial.
I can only imagine how frustrating that was for the victims' families,
Yeah.
knowing this man was involved in their loved ones' murders, but just stuck in legal limbo somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a tough time for the Ruiz and Wells family.
Right.
They'd been waiting so long for answers.
Mm-hmm.
And now, with Bill Markwart identified,
Right.
they had to wait even longer while all the legal stuff played out.
And for John Tyson,
Yeah,
this must have been a lot of pressure.
absolutely.
After the acquittal in Wisconsin,
Right?
now he had a chance to get justice for two families.
This wasn't just about winning. It
Yeah.
was about doing right by the victims and their families.
Right.
Making sure that someone dangerous was held accountable.
Yeah.
Tyson put everything he had into this case,
Oh.
preparing every single detail
Wow.
to make sure justice was served.
So they got Bill to Florida.
Yeah.
What was it like going into that trial?
You could feel the tension.
Yeah.
On one side,
Yeah.
you had the Ruiz and Wells family
Right.
just burdened by their grief and loss,
Yeah.
desperate for some closure.
Right.
And on the other side,
Yeah.
you had Bill Marquardt's family
Right.
still believing he was innocent,
Wow.
unable or unwilling to accept the mountain of evidence against him.
It's hard to understand how someone could do such horrible things and still have people convinced of their innocence.
Yeah.
But what was Bill's defense this time? Did he still say he didn't do it?
He did.
Wow.
Throughout the whole trial,
Yeah.
Bill denied everything,
Uh-huh.
acting like he was just a victim of circumstance.
Okay.
His lawyers argued that the DNA was messed up,
Right.
that the witnesses weren't reliable,
Okay.
and that the prosecution was trying to make up for losing in Wisconsin.
So they were just throwing out anything, hoping something would work.
Pretty much.
But with all that evidence,
Yeah.
the jury had to see through that, right?
You'd think so.
Right.
But remember,
Yeah.
it's the prosecution that has to prove their case.
Right.
They had to convince the jury, without a doubt, that Bill did these crimes.
That's about pressure.
Oh, yeah.
After the acquittal in Wisconsin,
Right.
this had to be nerve-wracking for everyone.
Definitely. The stakes were high.
Yeah.
Everyone in that courtroom felt it.
Right.
John Tyson gave a really powerful closing argument.
Okay.
He went through all the evidence, connected the dots between the two murders,
Right.
and painted this picture of Bill as someone capable of terrible violence.
So after all that, with so much writing on it, what did the jury decide?
Well, after thinking it over for a while,
Right.
they came back with a verdict
Okay.
on October 26, 2011. Bill Markwart was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder
Wow.
for killing Margarita Ruiz and Esperanza Wells.
That must have been so emotional for everyone.
It was for the Ruiz and Wells family.
Right.
It was relief mixed with sadness.
Yeah.
Justice was served,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't bring their loved ones
Of
back.
course.
They were crying, but also grateful.
Right.
They hugged each other and could finally start to heal.
And for John Tyson,
Yeah,
this had to feel like justice had been done.
it did.
Not just for him,
Right.
but for the whole system.
It wasn't about him winning.
Right.
It was about a dangerous person being held responsible.
Uh-huh.
For Tyson,
Yeah.
this case showed that you should never give up on finding the truth, no
Mhm.
matter how hard it is.
What about Bill Markwart? Did he show any remorse?
Nope.
Mm.
Or admit what he did, not at all.
Really?
Even after being found guilty,
Yeah.
he kept saying he was innocent.
It's like he didn't understand what he had done.
It's chilling.
It really is.
He was sentenced to death for the Florida murders,
Oh.
and that sentence hasn't changed.
What about his family? Did they come to terms with the truth?
It's complicated.
Okay.
Some still believed he was innocent,
Wow.
holding on to the image of the good son.
Yeah.
Others distanced themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't reconcile who they thought he was with what he did.
This case shows how violence affects so many people.
It does.
Not just the victims,
No.
but their families, the investigators, the
Mhm.
lawyers,
Mm.
everyone involved.
It's a reminder that justice is a long road
Yeah.
full of ups and downs.
Right.
But like in this case,
Yeah.
even when it seems impossible,
Mm-hmm.
the truth comes out.
And sometimes it takes someone like John Tyson
Yeah.
to keep digging,
Wait.
to connect everything,
And to fight for what's right.
to bring that truth to light. It's amazing that a dead end in Wisconsin ended up with justice in Florida. It makes you wonder how many other cases are out there just waiting for that one piece to connect it all.
It's true. And in this case, it was crucial for John Tyson to try new things, like that database of cold cases.
Right.
Back then, that wasn't normal for prosecutors, but Tyson's way of thinking really helped solve this case.
It shows that sometimes you need to be innovative and challenge the old ways to find justice.
Exactly. And this case wasn't just one person's work. It involved people working together across states.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, forensic experts,
Yep.
and everyone dedicated to the truth.
Right.
Think about all the legal hoops to get Bill from Wisconsin to Florida, the arguments about who's responsible, the logistics.
Yeah.
It was a team effort to make sure he was held accountable.
That's really inspiring. But it's scary to think that someone like Bill, who seems so normal, could do those things.
Right.
How can we know who's capable of evil?
It's a tough question, and it makes us rethink good and evil.
Yeah.
We try to put people in boxes as good or bad.
Right.
But people are more complicated than that.
Of course.
This case shows that darkness can hide anywhere.
Yeah.
And even people close to us can do terrible things.
It's a sobering thought, but there are also hopeful parts of this story.
Yeah.
Tyson's dedication to justice, the strength of the Ruiz and Wells family, the teamwork between different groups.
Right.
It shows the power of people to keep going even after tragedy.
Absolutely. And those bits of hope lead us to the truth.
Right.
Remember that call from Jason Fitz's father?
Yes.
It seemed random and unimportant, but Tyson didn't ignore it.
Right.
He followed that lead, and it led him to a crucial piece.
It's like those tiny details can be the key to something huge.
Yeah,
And if we aren't paying attention or willing to look closer, we might miss them.
that's it. This case shows that sometimes the most important information is right in front of us.
Yeah.
We just have to be willing to look for it,
Right.
to question what we think we know, and trust our gut feeling.
It's interesting, though, that even with all that evidence, Bill Markwart insisted he was innocent.
Yeah.
Even facing death, he clung to that denial.
You know, a journalist named Scott Weinberger interviewed Bill in prison years later.
Okay.
Bill was focused on being a good son to his mother,
Wow.
as if he wanted her approval even in prison.
That's strange.
He seemed like a tortured person,
Yeah.
not able to face what he'd done.
It's as if he made up this different reality for himself.
Yeah,
One where he wasn't the monster.
exactly.
Unsettling.
It is. And it makes you think about how people can fool themselves, especially after such awful acts.
Right.
It's like they create stories to hide from the truth.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's a reminder that justice isn't a finish line. It's a journey.
Okay.
It's often messy and complicated.
Yeah.
But like John Tyson shows us, being determined,
Right.
trying new things,
Yeah.
and believing in truth can lead to a resolution even when it seems impossible.
And this wasn't just about catching a criminal. It was about closure for two families who suffered a terrible loss.
Definitely years later, John got a graduation announcement from Paige Louise,
Who's that?
Margarita Ruiz's granddaughter and Hope Wells's niece.
Oh, wow.
It reminded him how his work had helped this family rebuild after such a tragedy.
That's amazing. It shows that even in darkness, there's hope, a chance for healing.
Absolutely. And stories like this that go beyond the surface show the human experience and stick with us.
This case has been a wild ride. It's made me think a lot about paying attention to small details,
Right.
working together, and believing that truth will come out.
And sometimes that truth leads to unexpected connections,
Right.
bringing people together for justice and restoring our faith in good over evil.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions,
Absolutely.
and never underestimate the impact even small actions can have.
It's true.